Hi, my name is Dave, and I'm going to be explaining the AFRS data entry spreadsheet and dashboard to you. I'm going to go through the different sheets and pages and explain a little bit of how it works and how to use it, and hopefully you find this helpful. So to begin with, before we can start viewing results, we need to actually get student information into this system. So we'll do that with the input page. There's a pre-test input and there's a post-test input as well. We have two inputs, so make sure you're using the correct one before you begin. And they do look slightly different. Places where we're going to be putting in information, you can see the kind of light pink color there to guide you in where you're going to be entering the information for each part of the entry. So I'm going to look at the pre-test input, and I'm going to go ahead with a Harry Potter theme when I'm entering information. This looks very similar to the summary score sheet that you'll use for the AFRS. So it hopefully should be really easy as you're tracking through that sheet to enter it into the system in order to view results. So going with the Harry Potter theme, we're using Albus Dumbledore as our teacher code. So the teacher code is the first three letters of the last name and then the first letter of the first name. So Dumbledore, I'm going to go with Doom, and then D-U-M, and then an A after that for Albus. And of course, we're dealing with Hogwarts as a school. Now we're going to put the information in for the student, and you'll see that as I put the information in, it's going to change that from the light pink to the white color, saying, okay, I have something in there. So let's actually go with Dobby the elf today and put him in. So you can see that once I put in Dobby's name, that's turned white. Dobby is a male. We're going to go ahead and put in a birthday of, who knows, January 15th, 2014. Dobby's in kindergarten, sure. Oh, wrong place. And you won't be able to change those cells, only I can change the cells. So don't worry about making a mistake like I did. You will not be able to. And the pre-test date for Dobby is February 11th, 2014. So this is the date right here. Now, if you put it in a different format, like let's say I said November 2nd, 2014, it's going to get that and change it to the right thing for you, and that's not a problem. I'm not sure why I'm putting 2014 though, probably because it's late in the day. We should be putting 2024, of course, or maybe 2023, given that we're saying November 2nd. All right, we're finally settled. We have a 9-year-old kindergarten elf that we're dealing with here. And now we're going to put in the scores. So when we go through, let's say that Dobby is doing very well. I mean, after all, we have a 9-year-old kindergarten student. So we're going to go ahead and put in some pretty nice high scores here for Dobby. Going all the way down, not quite perfect, but doing very well. 25, 23. This is a good time to mention something that if I put in a score that isn't correct, in other words, it's outside of the range of what it should be, something like 14 for word rating, which is out of 10, it's going to give me an error and say, please put in something that is less than or equal to 10. So we'll go ahead and just finish this up here. You can see that right away, this has done some calculations for us that make it a little bit easier on your sheet. So for example, we have the pre-test age right here that's filled out for us. We don't have to calculate that or figure it out. The spreadsheet will do that for you. And it's also giving us the subtotals and the grand total as well for the sheet. I'm going to take out a score here because I want to show you another kind of feature or safeguard. If I've forgotten to put something in and I try to submit the student record, it's going to tell me, it's going to go ahead and say the following field is blank medial sound isolation score. Press OK, and we'll know that, okay, I got to fill that in. So let's put a 4 out of 5. Now we're all good to go with Dobby's information. It's all right here, and I can press submit. It's going to run the script that adds it to the records and give us confirmation. First thing is that I should mention when you run this script for the very first time on your copy of this sheet, it is going to ask you for permissions to run the script. Go ahead and give it permissions, and then from there it's going to ask you to just kind of sign in with Google to confirm. Once you've authorized the scripts once on these spreadsheets, then it's done. It's good. You don't have to do that again. The spreadsheet will work every time you press a button without having to reauthorize. So we have a confirmation here that Dobby Elf has submitted successfully, so I'll press OK. And once that's happened, you'll notice that it clears off all of this stuff. So it's ready for you to enter in the next information. The only thing that it hasn't cleared, because that's probably going to stay constant, is of course the school and the teacher code. Now, the school and teacher code is how the records are identified to you. So when we go to this page, it is showing all of the results for that school and that teacher code on this page. So you can see that I have actually quite a bit of information here when it comes to Harry Potter characters. And in fact, I have some other kind of strange ones for my testing that are showing up here as well. So this is in the pre-test results page, which is what you'll be looking at to confirm that you've submit things or to read results in kind of a spreadsheet type format. You can see here that we have a legend for colors. So if we have green, we're at or above the benchmark for what would be considered adequate or proficient for the pre-test. Yellow means it's developing, and red means that that's a minimal or emerging skill. And these are the lines that you'll find on your AFRS scoring guide document. So this is just right away showing you where it fits in to that scoring guide. The top here is showing you a little bit of how things fit in terms of the umbrellas that we have in the categories. So of course the total is a total. It includes everything with 145 points. And that's why we have this green extending right over the top. When we have phonological skills, right, that includes all of these 4 subcategories right here. So it's over top of that, phonics here, and you get the idea. Sound isolation includes initial, final, and medial sounds, of course. So that's why we have that kind of over top hanging over with the red color, is so that we're aware that it contains those 3 things. And then we have as a percentage the individual scores for each part of this assessment for all of these individuals. So that's the basic layout. The stars here have to do with the difficulty. Of course, you see that throughout the AFRS sheet. So that's just continued here as well. So you can track what's more difficult and less difficult. And then this is maybe kind of exciting. This will also show you what areas the student needs to work on the most. So for example, when we take a look at Susan Bones, the main things that she needs to focus on is initial sound isolation and onset rhyme blending. So this automatically identifies for you the 2 main things that each student needs to work on that are kind of lagging skills, right? That are the lowest from the proficiency score is essentially what it's figuring out for you. So the lower it is from the proficiency score, the more the student needs to work on it. And that's what's showing up here is the lowest scores or the biggest gaps for that student from that proficiency score. When we take a look at this as well, if you're looking at the kind of district larger dashboard, this won't be the proficiency score, but instead this will be the district average. Doesn't really make a difference. Just for the individual dashboard, the proficiency score is here instead for easy comparison as you go through. And then on the right-hand side, you can see actually the 4 biggest things for the class to work on. So the 4 focus areas for this particular class are final sound isolation, medial sound isolation, syllable detection, and phoneme segmenting. This is also the place where you can delete a student record. So let's say that a student leaves your class, or maybe they end up, you've entered it incorrectly, or in the case of Dobby the elf here, I've actually entered Dobby twice. And I've also got some Davy Crockett's here as well that I've entered twice that I need to delete, again from testing. So let's go ahead and delete the first Dobby the elf. So as you can see here, this is the row for Dobby. And as we go across, we've got this check box to select that we want to delete this record for Dobby. And then we can just press the trash can. It's going to confirm, do I want to delete this record? Yes, I do. And then it's going to go ahead and get rid of that Dobby record for us and just confirm that it has been deleted. If I want to get rid of the 2 Davy Crockett's, I can do that by selecting them both. Go ahead and press delete. And then again, it's confirming, do I want to do this? Yes. And then it's going to get rid of those Davy Crockett's for me. It looks like I've actually got one remaining, a little bit of an error there that I'll clean up in the script. It's best to do these, though, one at a time as you go through. All right, so that's the pretest results page. If we go to the pretest analysis, this allows us to zoom in and take a look at one specific student and see where they're at in kind of more of a graphical or visual form. So if I take a look at Cedric Diggory, and I look at where he's at compared to the class, the individual, and then where that lines up with the proficiency threshold, I can see those results. So we're seeing Cedric as this teal blue color right here, while the class is showing up more as that yellow gold color. So we can see that Cedric is actually quite a bit further behind peers, except for in sound isolation, and he's killing it in sound letter correspondences, doing really well at decoding and reading, and quite well at encoding and spelling compared to the threshold and the class. And then this altogether is the more granular specific outcome. So these are our subcategories, right, that include quite a few things. And then as we go down, we're looking at instead our individual outcomes and skills. So again, this is a more granular look of what we need to work on. So if I'm looking at this for Cedric, right away I can see, oh, syllable deletion, quite a big issue for us to work on, as well as onset rhyme blending, because those are the biggest kind of gaps or lags behind the rest of the class, and also really far away from the proficiency kind of threshold there. So I'm going to guess that actually for Cedric, and I'm just going to look at this to confirm that this is working how it should, but I'm going to guess that onset rhyme blending and syllable deletion are the two things that Cedric should work on when I go look at our pretest results. And if I look at Cedric Diggory, and this is in alphabetical order by last name, sure enough, I have onset rhyme blending and syllable deletion as the two things that he needs to work on. So it does match up exactly how it should. One thing that I'm pretty excited about that I hope people use, or that you get use out of, is the group generator. What this allows you to do is come up with groups that are mutually exclusive, so no overlap, for the different granular outcomes. So let's say that you're running an intervention one day and you want to pull out some students from a class because you have some extra help from a substitute teacher or an EA or something, and you want them to work on, let's say, syllable blending. You want 5 students to go, and we don't want any students that are above 50% because we'll consider that as they're doing okay. And I'm not speaking here as a literacy expert, disclaimer. We're just giving a hypothetical here. I'll press submit on this. It will clear off the old groups and it will come up with the groups that I should make. And it turns out that actually for syllable blending, only our sneaky Davy Crockett that somehow escaped my deletion script is the one that has made it into here. So everybody else must be over 50% for syllable blending. So let's go ahead, and I think I've been saying deletion, so my bad, syllable blending. So let's try something a little bit more difficult. Say, okay, well, we're not doing that with the teacher or the EA. Let's instead go with onset rhyme blending. We'll press submit, and then from here we can see that we have 5 students that are at 0% for that outcome that could really use some help and work for that, and we have them right here. Let's say, okay, we actually can take 8 students instead. Great, we change it to 8, we run it again, and we've got our new list here. Let's say that we have somebody else who can also help and they're able to work with sound identification with the kids. Okay, so let's say again we want that 50% line. Let's go ahead and calculate these groups. So it's going to say onset rhyming is first, and then we're going to go with sound identification second. Now this actually brings up a thing that we want to be cognizant of as we work with this sheet, that we want to start with things that are more foundational and, dare I say, easier first, and then go to the more difficult skills as I go across these groups. So for example, if I wanted to kind of make some groups around letter identification and then sound identification and then something like really difficult phoneme substitution, then this would be a good setup because I have easier to kind of middle with the 2 stars there, and then finally to hardest with the 4 stars over here. So if I went ahead and calculated that, it will first figure out, okay, who should go in this letter identification group. It gives me 8 names. From the class that's left, who should go into sound identification, I've got 3 names. I don't have a full 5. Guaranteed that people in this first group would end up in sound identification, but they're already tied up. They're already pulled up in this group. So now they're here. And then phoneme substitution, I've got 5 that are at 0 of, again, the students that are remaining after group 1 and group 2. So these ones could work. So this would be a great way for you to figure out what kids should go to what centers, for you to pull out interventions, that sort of thing in order to work on literacy. And it works really well. Very, very quick. Feel free to change the names in here. Feel free to copy and paste. Feel free to delete these scores and then show them. That's fine. You could put it up on the board. That's great. You can make those changes and it's not going to ruin anything. It will still work the next time I press submit. I can change something here. Oh, I just selected the exact same outcome randomly. That's funny. And I have my groups generated here again. So play around with this. I hope you find it useful. Then we get to the post-test input. This is slightly different in that now we're selecting of the existing names. We don't want to do a post-test unless we have a pre-test, right? It doesn't make sense for us to do a post-test in that kind of place. So these are the students right now that I'm missing post-tests for. So I could just go ahead and select that student. Once again, if I put in, let's say it's June 5th, 2024, I can put that in any format. It will come up with the right format for me, and it will tell me the post-test age, so I don't have to worry about that. It's already put in for me the pre-test date, the pre-test age. We're going to pretend like Joe is male, even though I know that in the story, Joe is not. But this is just pasting over Harry Potter names from existing student records, as I'm sure that you've figured out. So the gender is not correct. Then from there, as I go through, I can just go ahead and put in the post-test scores. I can see the pre-test scores for comparison. So right away, I can double check this against my paper copy of the summary sheet and make sure that it does match as I go through. And I'll fill this out and then press submit to add it to the post-test scores. Post-test results, more of the same. I can delete records here as well, and that will delete the post-test record. So let's say that I realize Mo Frank has been entered incorrectly. I could just go ahead and click the delete on that particular one. I know that you can't see this right now, so please hold as I expand this over just a bit. There we go. I'm going to select Mo Frank, and then from there, I'm going to press delete on Mo Frank, and there we go. Mo Frank should be leaving us. Once again, we have a little error with that script that I have to fix up, but this isn't about that. This is about showing you the dashboard, but I will fix that up before it is released. Okay, once we have that, I do want to mention, because I didn't say this before, for students where I have this like almost completely not visible, the reason for that is because they've gotten such a high score that it just doesn't make sense to have these growth areas. For that student, it's not a great representation. It's not reliable. So that's why it's grayed out for these students. That's an automatic thing that happens. Again, this is all automatic. All you're doing is just putting in the scores, right, in the pre and the post test and pressing the buttons, and everything else is automatic and done for you. But we can see that for Cedric, it doesn't make sense for us to talk about what Cedric should be doing, just simply because, again, the score is so high for Cedric at 93%. That there really aren't any major growth areas that we can identify with this particular assessment. Post-test analysis is more of the same. Again, we can select a student and see the results and kind of zoom in on what they're doing in both the subcategories and then the more specific outcomes down here, and compare it to both the class as well as comparing it to the proficiency threshold. Note that the proficiency threshold is different for the post-test than for the pre-test, and that is reflected here as well. And then finally, we have a direct comparison in terms of growth. So we can see exactly how students have done for the post-test and the pre-test and see overall where we're at for growth, which is hopefully a useful way for you to see where students are at and to see if they've gone up in the year and how much or down, and even identify in what areas you maybe need to change your methods a little bit because the whole class is lagging, or ones where you're just doing amazingly well in that category and they have very good results. that's more or less it for this. Those are the sheets that you will be concerned with. Other sheets are in the spreadsheet, but they're hidden. Please don't touch them. They're just for doing the calculations and other functions within this sheet. But that is more or less it. All right, well, thank you so much.